So Sean, why do you think students might like to study in the Patagonia, study biology?
Well, Jesse, one thing that is striking to me about this area, and that is very equivalent to marine habitats, is the zonation patterns that you see. On the coast in Porto Natales, there's a clear zonation pattern of where the algae live, where the barnacles may live, where other invertebrates may live. And when you come to Patagonia, and you just look around, you can see zonation patterns just in this video. Just across the bay, you can see the green hills and the green mountains. And beyond that, you can see the dry zonation patterns that exist. And just behind or in front of us is this green and this brown and this white because of the mountains. And what's unique about the organisms that live here is that they're all evolved to be in these particular habitats. And they change the way they are shaped and their morphology based on the altitude as you go up the mountains. Plus, Patagonia is full of species that are indigenous to the southern hemisphere, which most American students aren't remotely knowledgeable of. So that's just one reason.
That's amazing. And the southern tip of South America is the closest that you can get to Antarctica. So I would imagine that the species that live here might be unique to...
Extremely unique. So you might find the same species here, and they might exist in New Zealand, in the southern parts of New Zealand, Tasmania, and certain parts of Australia. And if you think about, Pangea, when the continents split, it kind of makes sense that those species kind of show up over and over again. And as a community ecologist, what's interesting is you look for the connections between the habitat that the organism's living in and their structure, their biology, how they reproduce, and everything else. And there's so much here to see. It's so beautiful.
Well, I heard that you mentioned evolution, and this part of the world is actually part of Darwin, who, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, about the theory of evolution and this part of the world particularly.
Well, I think this part in particular would have probably driven Darwin's theory of evolution in the sense that he'd probably seen these same species just on the other side of South America in Argentina. And as he came around Cape Horn, he probably noticed small differences in their morphologies over time, but the same species. And it's those small differences over time that really pushes an organism into like some evolutionary pattern.
Very cool. Very cool. So we have seen, sadly, how conservation has been interrupted down here almost, right, with the wildfires that came through. And I'm just wondering if there's something that we could compare between, natural fires versus what we saw here in 2015, that there was a human-made fire that devastated the region.
So in fire ecology is called pyroecology, and it's a very fascinating field where you'll see a natural fire or a human-made fire, and it will decimate the entire area. And you'll definitely see that here, areas that have been decimated. And usually after those events take place, researchers come out and they quickly start investigating like what's coming back. And we've seen some regrowth in a lot of the plant populations, but the remnants of the fire are still there and they still remain. So when new organisms come in and settle, they start a successional process from the earliest settlers, like let's say these grasses, to these tiny ferns, all the way up to the large trees that we see. So as time goes on, that successional stage should end up being like an end state, which should look similar to the original forest. But now we have so much influence with so many tourists coming here, I think, and a lot of people carry things on their hiking boots that they may be introducing species that aren't indigenous to these areas, which would be really very interesting to catalog.